At 181 knots, the aircraft's wheels left the runway. A split second later, the cockpit was filled with the sickening thuds of multiple impacts. Nearly 20 seagulls had swarmed the Airbus A321, turning a routine takeoff into a desperate fight for survival. The pilots, who moments before were focused on a standard climb, were now facing a scenario their training had never fully replicated: a dual-engine bird strike. In the next heart-stopping minutes, a cascade of small errors and missed procedures would push them and 233 souls to the very edge of disaster, culminating in an emergency landing that would be called a miracle. The story of Ural Airlines Flight 178, an event that would later be compared to the miracle on the Hudson, has been prepared according to official reports and investigation findings. We travel to a Thursday morning in August 2019 at Zhukovsky International Airport, southeast of Moscow. An Airbus A321, registered to Ural Airlines, was being prepared for a passenger flight to Simferopol in Crimea. The plans were straightforward, but the environment was not. Airports are often built away from cities to avoid noise and pollution. Zhukovsky, located 40 kilometers from Moscow, was no exception. However, this distance came with a hidden danger. Surrounding agricultural fields and nearby waste sites attracted large flocks of birds. That morning, the primary threat was herring gulls, deceptively large birds weighing up to 2 kilograms with wingspans reaching 1.5 meters. A single one could be a hazard. A flock was a lethal threat. Airport authorities had installed bird-scaring devices, but the intelligent gulls quickly learned the signals were harmless and continued their activities. This wasn't a unique problem to Zhukovsky. It was a global risk pilots were trained to expect. Bird strikes were a standard item on the pre-flight threat briefing, yet familiarity can breed complacency. The aircraft had landed earlier that morning without incident. The new crew, Captain Damir Yusupov, 41, and First Officer Georgy Mirzin, 23, took over. Captain Yusupov was an experienced pilot with more than 4,200 flight hours, most on the A320 family. First Officer Mirzin was younger, with just 780 total hours, but his record was clean. They were a capable team for a standard 1-hour hop. The weather was good, with only light winds. The crew reviewed their route, NOTAMs, and performed their pre-flight checks. The aircraft was loaded with 16 tons of fuel, 6 cabin crew, and 226 passengers, a full flight operating at its weight limit. During the crucial pre-takeoff briefing, they discussed engine failure procedures, but they glossed over the threat section, which included the ever-present risk of bird strikes. The airport's daily bird activity reports had become background noise, a routine warning they'd heard too many times to treat with urgency. Psychologically, they were underprepared. This was a critical oversight. The procedure was simple. If a hazardous bird flock was reported on or near the runway, air traffic control would warn the pilots and ground crews would attempt to disperse them. During takeoff, a rejected takeoff, RTO, is easily performed before a speed called V1, about 100 to 150 knots depending on weight. After V1, the takeoff must be continued unless there is a catastrophic failure like fire, wind shear, or an unsafe condition, which includes a strike by large birds. Modern jet engines are designed to ingest small birds and keep running, but a single large bird, let alone a flock, can cause catastrophic damage, tearing through fan blades and destroying the engine's core. The active runway was 12, a massive strip 4,600 meters long and 70 meters wide, almost twice the length and width of a standard runway. This provided a huge safety margin even for a late abort. As they taxied, Captain Yusupov noticed a flock. "There aren't any birds on the runway, right?" he asked. "Not many," Mirzin replied. "But there's a flock flying over there," Yusupov pointed out. "Yes, there's a flying flock," Yusupov confirmed. The pilot was aware but decided to continue. They lined up on the center line. At 6:12, they advanced the thrust levers. The aircraft began to roll. A few seconds in, as speed built past 60 knots, Yusupov spotted a small group of birds. "Come on, get out of here already," he muttered. Speed was still well below V1. They could have safely stopped, but they didn't perceive it as a serious threat and continued. At 100 knots, then 140 knots, First Officer Mirzin suddenly swore in Russian. A large flock had risen directly into their flight path. They were still below V1. They still could have rejected. They did not. At the calculated rotation speed of 166 knots, Merzin called rotate. Captain Yusupov pulled back on the side stick, maybe a touch slowly. The wheels lifted at 181 knots. And then came the sounds. Approximately 20 gulls struck the aircraft. 1 entered the right engine, 3 smashed into the left. Instrument readings went wild. Vibration levels in both engines pegged at their limits. The right engine suffered a minor power loss. The bird had likely been shredded without critical damage. The left engine was not so lucky. The 3 birds had crippled it. It was failing fast. They were now flying on asymmetrical thrust. The healthy right engine was pulling them hard to the left. The standard response is for the flying pilot to apply rudder, controlled by pedals, into the good engine to maintain direction. "Climb," called First Officer Merzin, acting as the monitoring pilot. The altimeter was moving. The next standard call should have been "positive climb, gear up." This precise phrase triggers the crucial action of retracting the landing gear to reduce drag. But Merzin only said "climb." In that moment of high stress, both pilots forgot the gear. Captain Yusupov focused on a cascade of electronic warnings, ECAM messages flashing on his screens, neglected his primary duty: aviate, navigate, communicate. He was trying to troubleshoot before ensuring the aircraft was flying optimally. With the gear down, creating massive drag, their single, damaged engine struggled to climb. The flight director commanded a higher pitch angle to follow the programmed climb path, but when Yusupov raised the nose, their speed dangerously decayed. They were in a vicious cycle. In his haste, Yusupov engaged the autopilot before trimming the aircraft for stable flight. The autopilot, fighting the asymmetrical thrust and drag, disconnected seconds later. The cockpit became a symphony of alarms, the autopilot warning, the ground proximity warning system chanting "Don't sink, don't sink," and the relentless ECAM procedure list.
Don't sink, glide slope,
plus 100,
pull up,
radio altimeter,
wind shear, wind shear, wind shear, sink rate, glide slope, too low, flaps, too low, gear, too low, terrain, 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 pull up,
V1,
pull up.
The pilot's situational awareness shattered. They were reacting to alarms, not flying the airplane. At a perilously low altitude of just 240 feet and a decaying speed near stall, Yusupov declared an emergency, Mayday, but the controller didn't catch it. Then he made a critical error. He pushed both thrust levers to maximum. The left, damaged engine suffered further destruction. The right, overworked engine began to overheat. Cleared to return to the airport, they had neither the altitude nor speed to make it. The ground proximity warning system now blared its most urgent warning: terrain ahead, pull up. It was then, finally, that Captain Yusupov looked down and saw the gear was still extended. In a reflexive correction, he retracted it. It was the right move, but it came nearly 3 minutes too late. The aircraft, now cleaner, stopped sinking momentarily, but was committed to a field landing. Communication between the pilots had broken down. At 90 feet above a vast cornfield, Yusupov pulled the side stick fully back. The aircraft's inbuilt alpha protection system engaged, preventing a stall by holding the nose at 15.5 degrees. The right engine still screaming at near takeoff power, the Airbus A321 settled into the cornfield at 136 knots. The tail struck first, then the main gear. The aircraft slid, plowing through the wet, muddy field for hundreds of meters before coming to a stop, intact in a cloud of dirt and corn stalks. Silence. Then action. The engines were shut down. Evacuation commenced immediately. Miraculously, all 233 people on board survived. Only 32 sustained minor injuries. Some passengers, in a state of shock, even asked to be put on the next flight to their destination. In the immediate aftermath, the pilots were hailed as heroes. Ural's president promised them state awards. The landing was dubbed the second miracle, after Captain Sullinger's Hudson landing. But when investigators retrieved the cockpit voice recorder and flight data recorder, a more complex picture emerged. The official report highlighted a severe breakdown in crew resource management. The chain was clear: underbriefing the bird strike threat, continuing the takeoff despite visible bird activity, the fatal omission, forgetting to retract the landing gear, breaking the aviate, navigate, communicate hierarchy, focusing on checklists before aircraft control, loss of situational awareness amid the alarm cacophony,
poor communication and role clarity between the pilots. The investigation concluded that had they retracted the gear on schedule, they likely had the performance to return to Zhukovsky. The aircraft's own protection systems, the alpha floor protection that prevented a stall, and the engine control logic were what ultimately saved them from their own errors. The event stands as a textbook case of how a routine threat, when met with procedural complacency and degraded CRM under stress, can escalate into a near catastrophe. It was a miracle, but one forged as much by robust aircraft design as by pilot skill. The aircraft remains where it landed, a silent testament in that Russian cornfield. Ural Airlines planned to salvage it for parts, and in a chilling echo, just 4 years later, another Ural Airlines Airbus would make a similar emergency landing in a field. That crew, perhaps having learned from the echoes of Flight 178, would also walk away without a single life lost. In the end, the skies remind us that protocol is our first shield, and calm, coordinated action is our last. The 233 lives of Flight 178 were spared, leaving behind not just a story of survival, but a permanent lesson etched in aviation history.